Hi guys, and welcome to this video where I'm going to paint a row of trees, and I'm going to do this as an exercise in brush control. So we're going to focus on the trees, the tree shapes, and we're going to create a ground of rocks. And I'm actually doing this video as an exercise for my workshop students who wanted to learn how to paint trees. This is a beginner workshop. They wanted to learn how to control their brush and paint some trees. So I'm doing this for you guys, but everyone else can benefit from this video. And I'm gonna do it all real time and narrate it so you can follow along. Here you go. I just found some reference photos of old curvy trees like this on Pixabay. So free reference photos for you guys. I'm just gonna wing it here. I'm not gonna copy the trees, but I am going to take a look at how the branches are kind of coming out from the tree. And I'm not painting all the branches. I don't want to copy anything, and I don't want it to be as filled with branches as these references are, because I want to do some foliage as well. That's one of the things my students asked for as well, is to how to do some foliage. So here you can see I'm just stamping on the foliage here, and I'm showing this technique in another video that I just uploaded about brush control. But this is mainly just putting your brush down on the side and just using it as a stamp to put on some nice foliage. Just using SAP Green at the moment. Just dabbing, 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 dabbing to get some foliage. Don't try to paint every single leaf. That's not gonna be turning out well at all, but use a similar technique like this, and you can get the impression of leaves, and make sure to leave white space between your leaves so you have somewhere where the tree kind of breathes. I'm just gonna add some small branches as well. Here I'm using the tip of my brush, holding it pretty tight, close to the bristles of the brush here. Don't do too many branches like these, but do a few so we get the impression that this foliage is actually attached to the tree. You go. I'm just doing a little bit of roots here as well. And make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more videos like this. There's plenty of real-time videos, and I upload it almost every week, and I am uploading every week at least time lapses and trailers from my Skillshare classes, but also real-time videos. They are narrated and they are just for you. So I'm just doing another tree here. You can see how I'm using my brush like a completely regular brush right now. Just using a little bit of the body of the brush, but also the tip of the brush to get these fine lines. Just pushing down where I want the line to be a little thicker, but mostly just using the tip of my brush to kind of guide my brush to see where do I want my lines to be, and then I can always thicken it with the body of my brush afterwards. So here at the moment I'm just mostly using the tip. I'm just trying to get the right flow on my branches here. And I want them to overlap a little, because real trees do that. Yeah, did you know that? It's crazy. And I want it to be behind this tree. And I know many of you might think that why didn't she just add foliage at the end to the left tree as well? And I could have done that, of course, but I wanted to show the technique. So if you're one of those people who only watch the first minute or two of a YouTube video, then you still get to see this technique. But right now I'm just adding more trees, and I want to show you different varieties of this type of tree, so you can see how it works, and you can see how I'm just really making guidelines with my brush so I can fill it in and paint the tree trunk afterwards. The hardest part about painting trees, I think, is actually to get a nice and organic shape, and by using the tip of our brush to guide our lines, we get closer to that. Also, try to be loose in your wrist so the brush does the work and makes the curves that it would actually make. If you hold it too tight, you control it too much, and you'll end up with some stiff lines, which is not as organic or uncontrolled. But if you want control, that's totally fine. Just be aware that that's what happens when you hold your brush super tight. I'm just adding a little bit of darker color here to the tree trunks, just to give it some shadow. But at the moment I'm only using Dyke Brown for these trunks. It's a nice cool brown, so if you have any cool browns, that is the one to go to. It's my favorite brown, and I'm using it so much because it has more natural feel than burnt umber or something like that, the warmer browns. Here I'm just switching my reference photo again, so that's why you could see my arm in the frame here. And I wanted another tree, and this tree is actually a really old looking one, so I want to add that here on the top of this hill. And I'm just doing some nice roots here, and you can see I'm just being inspired by this tree, not copying it at all, but just trying to hold my brush pretty high and just letting it do its thing, kind of rolling it a little, as you would see in my video about brush control. Sometimes rolling the brush is the best way, and just flicking it to get these nice thin lines. When you're painting trees, one of the rule of thumbs is to actually start with a thick branch and then just let it thin out and be super thin in the end. If you can manage that, you can really get some beautiful trees. Just never end your branch in a thick line, then you get a chunky, weird looking tree. So it's all about brush control and how to paint with the tip of your brush. You can, of course, I'm using a brush that's size, let's see, 6. So it's a pretty thick brush for those thin lines, but it does form into a beautiful tip. But if you haven't got any of these, just use a smaller brush. And just painting this with the side of my brush, just to get that nice thick part of the tree trunk down. And you can see how I'm just trying to figure out which way to direct my branches here. Just going behind here. Again, trying to just do some guides here and see how it goes. And I'm adding a little more water to this mixture because it's a tree that's behind the right tree here, and you want to think about that when you are composing your picture, that when you have trees overlapping, you want the back one to be a little bit lighter to make the one in the front stand out. Okay, now I'm adding foliage, and again just stamping it on, using the side of my brush to just add leaves. This is I think this is late spring. There's a lot of leaves here, a lot of foliage, and I this is one of my the favorite times of the year in the forest, because it's just beautiful. Those green, light green tones, and everything is just beautiful, and you can imagine the birds just chirping and singing and making all those sounds that really just makes the forest amazing at this point in this time of year. And at the moment, just using SAP Green. I'm gonna mix it up, so don't worry, stick around. Don't pause the video because you don't want to see me putting SAP Green on here. I'm gonna mix it up. Yeah, going in with a Jadite Genguine, and that's a kind of a rather special Daniel Smith color. It's granulating, and the reason I'm using this is because it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dark green that has a blue undertone. So it's a perfect green for shadows. You can also use if you have a sap green or something like that, and mix it with some blue to get a blue shade that's a bit darker. But I want to create some shadow in this foliage, and you can see I'm still stamping it on. And right now I'm stamping actually with clean water, because I want some of the foliage to kind of bleed and not have too harsh lines. Still just stamping, and now I'm just doing it in another direction so I'm holding the brush in a different angle, but still just stamping away. No brush strokes really, just stamping. You can see it's actually a great tree for beginners, and it's a great way to create foliage for beginners. I have other videos on trees, so you can totally check them out as well. But at the moment, this is a perfect way to create foliage, but you can do it in other ways as well. Now we want to focus on the ground here. And my students, when they asked me to choose the subject for my next workshop, they said, "Camilla, could you please show us how to paint rocks, because especially rocks in landscapes and rocks like in these beginner paintings, because it's hard to create something that's not just a big compact blob of color." And I totally agree. So I'm gonna paint the ground or the rocks in a Paynes Grey, and that's why I just added a little Paynes Grey to my trees to create that effect, but I wanted to create some cohesion in the colors. So I wanted to make sure that I had Paynes Grey in both the ground and in the trees. And you can see I'm just I'm putting down some paint here. I'm just rolling the brush to create some broken lines here. And just doing some dry brushing to create some texture. And just adding more color. And making sure I keep a lot of white space in the ground here. So again, rolling. When you're doing rocks like this, you really want to make sure that you have a lot of texture and a lot of white space. And you can create texture in many ways. I have a Skillshare class on that exact subject if you want to check that out. But I also have some videos here on YouTube. Again, subscribe if you want to know when I post videos. Because there's a lot of knowledge here. Just doing this upper hill as well. You can see how the texture between the... Oh yeah, I just told you that I'm just holding my brush super close to the paint here, paper here, just to almost laying it down on the paper to get that full width of the brush. And when you dip your brush in paint, you will have more paint and moisture in the tip of your brush, than on the body of the brush. So we can use that to our advantage by putting it down on the side and just painting with the complete brush. And now I'm just using the tip of my brush to paint some grasses. And both I'll paint grasses both on the top of my valley here, or the rocks here, but also in the middle and just random places here where I want my grasses, just to give some texture to the ground as well. Yeah, look at that. It really makes a lot of difference that there's this texture in the grasses. Here you go. Isn't that cool? Just adding a little more color. And you can totally just I'm winging this, and you can do the same. Just try to get a feel of when you feel like enough is enough. I want to add some of the color here to the tree branches or the tree trunks as well, just to get them looking like they're actually part of the painting. We don't want them to be just separate and not belonging there. So we want them to be part of the ground here. And I'm just adding a little more paint and a little more little shadow here on the right side. Doing that with this one as well. And just making some fine lines here, just to give them the trunks some texture. Think about these as old oak trees or something like that. They will have a lot of texture and a lot of history, and we want to try to show that in our painting. And I really think this was fun to show you. I hope you got inspired to paint some trees. That's not just straight up and down trees. It's a lot more fun to paint like this, and I hope you got some tips and tricks on how to do it. So I hope that you will share your projects if you paint one, and maybe tag me on Instagram. I'm mostly there, so to see it. So that was it. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and find more real-time videos on Patreon. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.